They said she couldn't fly with that bag. The passengers laughed. The crew rolled their eyes. But when one doctor stood up and shouted, "That's not luggage, and that's her life," the entire plane went silent. It all began on a cloudy Tuesday morning at Gate 14. A middle-aged woman, Grace Williams, waited quietly at the end of the boarding line. She looked fragile, pale skin, tired eyes, a scarf wrapped around her head instead of hair. On her shoulder hung a small medical pump, a transparent IV bag swaying gently with every step she took. When her boarding group was finally called, Grace smiled faintly at the gate agent and whispered, "Thank you, dear. I just need a little help finding my seat." Her hands trembled as she handed over her ticket. A few passengers behind her sighed impatiently. "Come on, lady, some of us have connections to catch," a man muttered loudly enough for others to hear. Grace kept moving, slow but steady. Inside the cabin, the familiar hum of air vents mixed with chatter and the soft click of luggage bins closing. She stopped halfway down the aisle, breathing carefully, her IV bag catching the light like liquid glass. The flight attendant, young, polished, professional, noticed immediately. Her smile was thin, practiced. "Ma'am, you can't bring that liquid bag on board. It violates airline safety policy." Grace blinked, confused. "Please, it's my chemotherapy. I can't disconnect for more than 3 hours. I have the doctor's letter right here." She fumbled through her purse, her fingers shaking as she held out a folded paper. The attendant didn't even look at it. She just sighed. "Rules are rules, ma'am. You'll have to check it in." For a moment, the cabin was silent. Then someone whispered, "Check in her IV bag?" A few people chuckled awkwardly. Nobody moved. Grace's throat tightened. Tears welled up as she clutched the IV line like it was her lifeline. Because it was. "If you take this from me, I could die before we land." The attendant crossed her arms, her voice cold. "Then maybe you shouldn't be flying at all." A few heads turned. One woman looked down, ashamed. A man near the window closed his eyes, pretending not to hear. Grace stood frozen, humiliated, her cheeks wet with silent tears. Her illness had already stolen her hair, her strength, and now it was stealing her dignity. Then a calm but commanding voice broke through the cabin. "Excuse me." A man in row 14 rose to his feet. He wore glasses and carried a doctor's badge clipped to his shirt. "I'm Dr. Collins, oncologist at St. Mary's Hospital." He walked forward, holding out his hand. "That's not a hazard," he said firmly. "That's medicine. That's her treatment keeping her alive." The flight attendant stiffened. "Sir, please return to your seat. You're disrupting boarding." Dr. Collins shook his head. "No. What's disrupting this flight is your lack of compassion." A murmur spread through the rows. Someone lowered their phone, realizing this wasn't just an argument. It was injustice. Grace whispered almost to herself, "Thank you." "No one ever stands up." The doctor smiled kindly. "Well, someone should." Within minutes, a supervisor boarded the plane, drawn by the tension. He took one look at Grace's IV line and frowned. Dr. Collins handed him the paperwork. "This is her medical authorization. Everything is approved." The supervisor's expression changed instantly. "Mrs. Williams, we're terribly sorry. We were notified about you. There must have been a communication error." The attendant's face turned pale. She looked down, unable to meet Grace's eyes. Dr. Collins turned toward her and said quietly, "Next time, read before you ruin someone's dignity." The captain himself came out of the cockpit. His uniform was crisp, but his eyes were gentle. "Mrs. Williams, on behalf of the airline, we sincerely apologize. You'll sit in first class for the rest of your journey, and your IV stays exactly where it is." Grace stared at him, speechless. After years of fighting cancer, she had forgotten what kindness looked like. "Thank you," she whispered. "I thought nobody would care." "People do care," Dr. Collins said softly. "They just forget kindness doesn't need an ID to board." As the plane finally lifted off, sunlight spilled through the windows, painting the cabin gold. Grace looked out, her reflection faint in the glass, tired, fragile, but alive. Across the aisle, Dr. Collins gave her a small nod. The same passengers who had mocked her now sat quietly, some wiping away tears. A young woman leaned over and said, "I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't understand before." Grace smiled weakly. "I forgive you." Life's too short for anger. The engines roared softly in the background, a lullaby of peace after the storm. Narrator, closing line. Sometimes, heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they just stand up, in the middle of a plane, and remind the world what humanity looks like, because kindness costs nothing. But sometimes it can save a life.